Holy buckets. Do you see that? This is just a jungle, an absolute nightmare. The squash this year, we're sad. There's tons of tomatoes in here. We just need to get in here and try and find them, really, compared to like this. Do you see the stark color contrast? Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Simply a Breeze. My name is Bree if you are new here. Today, we are finally getting out into the garden. It has been about 2 weeks since I've done anything in the garden. Harvest, prune, maintenance, you name it. The garden has been severely neglected. We went on vacation. We were gone for 10 days. I did have a neighbor looking out for everything. However, the garden just needs some TLC. It's also the end of September. I believe today is September 28th, and we need to go ahead and get the rest of the tomatoes that are on our plants to ripen before our last frost. Our average last frost is October 13th here in northern Colorado, or north central really. And I would really like to maximize this tomato harvest if possible. So we need to get out here, we need to get all of the red tomatoes off the vine so that way the plant can put energy into all of the green tomatoes. And then we also need to go ahead and do some pruning. We need to cut off some excess leaves because it is a jungle out there. So let's go ahead and do a garden tour, and then we were going to do a garden harvest and some maintenance. And we are just going to look at the state of things today because it is wild out there. I have had coffee, or I've got my coffee, I should say. I have already had breakfast. I need breakfast nowadays before I accomplish anything. And so let's get some coffee, let's get a sip of coffee, and let's get out into our garden. All right, friends, so let's start with this bed that's up in the front. This is in our front yard. So we did trim this parsley, and it looks like it has bounced back really beautifully, come back really, really lush. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest some of our parsley and let this guy keep growing so we can have a good parsley harvest. I'm not sure if I want to harvest too many more things of kale. I might, and I probably should, so I can make soups. But the kale, it is looking like it is starting to run its course. So we'll get all of the dead stuff off. We'll harvest some of the baby stuff, and we will continue from there. Ooh. Okay. And so now over here, let's look at this in all of its glory. These tomatoes are just wild out here. Just absolutely wild. They look gorgeous. I'm hoping it looks like I bit some of that blossom end rot in the bud. Things are looking pretty good, so we need to get up in here and we need to, one, cut off all of the tops of these tomatoes. I don't want the tomatoes getting any bigger. These tomatoes need to finish ripening the green tomatoes that are still on the vine because we want a tomato harvest this year, and I need it to go ahead and put its energy into the tomatoes. But I see tons and tons of red in here, so hopefully we can get some red harvest. I don't know. Let's see, can you see that? I don't know what that is. So that's interesting. So not all of these may be usable, but we will for sure grab everything that we can. These beans, y'all. Let's talk about these beans for a second. So this year has just been the struggle for beans, and that's what these were. These were bean seeds that just apparently never germinated. I don't know what happened. I don't know why. So all of this soil is just going to be dumped into the garden beds, and it won't necessarily go to waste. This basil at this point is kind of being shaded out by all of the tomatoes. I had a tomato vine like snap, and so there are some green tomatoes on here. You can still use these. I've actually had 2 already fall off, so I'm gonna set this right here and I will pick these 2 up and we will just make do. This basil plant, though, is thriving. It smells so good. I can still smell it. We did get beans. We got beans to grow here, so not many, but I'll take it. Anything is better than nothing. So we're going to have some sort of bean harvest. Maybe we'll have that with dinner tonight. I haven't planned dinner out necessarily, but we'll hopefully get some beans for dinner, which will be nice. So we've got a pencil pod, I think is what these are, because they're long and yellow. which makes sense. Pencils. This poor Cosmo, she's kind of running her course. She's dying at the end. She needs to be topped and deadheaded, and honestly, we may just pull her out. This zinnia did flower. It's been a struggle. And then our thyme is still looking really, really great. So I'm really happy about that. I'm going to give it a good water, and so that'll be happy. That's just a little succulent over there. This is some oregano. I'm really happy with the oregano. The calendula looked really good up until it got a little neglected. This poor zinnia is done for. This Cosmo is also done for. And my peppermint. So the peppermint is looking pretty decent. I'm not too disappointed in the peppermint. However, I have learned that if I intend, so I am pregnant, if you are new here, I am 21 weeks pregnant. I have learned that peppermint actually affects your milk supply in a negative way. So as much as I love peppermint, I'm going to have peppermint in excess now, but I probably won't be able to drink it for a while, which hopefully means that I can get up a good supply for tea later on in the future. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to tackle things in sections. So we're going to tackle this section first. I'm going to go ahead and pick tomatoes. We're going to trim things up. We're going to pick basil. We're going to pick beans. We're going to chop our parsley. We're going to kind of deadhead, get rid of some dying plants, and then we will move on to other sections of the garden. If you look back there, that is a project in itself. There is a success there, but there's also a failure there. But first, let's take care of this side. And so I am just going to go ahead and chop this plant off. It's got a lot of itty bitty tomatoes, and it's got a lot of rotten ones. So there's one good one here. There's a little good one here, and then the rest of them look pretty rotten, and like the rest of the tomatoes are so small, they are not going to reach full maturity before our frost hits. So I'm just going to cut this off, and the plant can put energy into the other tomatoes. The other thing you need to know is tomato vines specifically, they are so susceptible to disease. So I actually do not compost my tomato plants because I don't want to risk them in the composting process developing a disease, and then I introduce that into the soil. So my tomato plants are one of the few things that I actually do not compost for our soil the following year. This Cosmo is done. This can go in the compost though. So let me get a compost. Let me go grab our wheelbarrow and we'll get compost built up into the wheelbarrow. So friends, ideally you do not want your tomatoes to get this overgrown. However, just the way that this garden season has worked, this neglected garden is what it is. I was still able to get a harvest. It was still productive for us. And honestly, it still did really well. But ideally, you do not want your tomatoes, especially to get this overgrown, because this prevents a lot of airflow, and it is part of the reason I have disease on my tomatoes, on top of some watering issues. Is lack of airflow with tomatoes can result in disease. And so we are seeing a lot of disease here, on top of the fact that paste variety tomatoes are very susceptible to blossom end rot, which is the result of too much moisture and a lack of calcium, or the depletion of calcium in soil. So that's what we're observing as well here. And a lot of the rotting tomatoes is due to just excess water, which we did get a fair amount of rain this year on top of watering. And so I'm still trying to figure out how to adequately water and compensate or adjust when we get rain. See, and some of these have just been on the vine for too long. We did get a lot of moisture, so this one's split quite a bit. It might be salvageable, I'm not 100% sure. So we'll just set it aside. Oh, okay. If you hear a cat crying in the background, Boots can hear me. He can't see me though. Oh no. Okay, well. Ideally, I would have been able to maintain the garden or these tomatoes a lot better. However, during the first trimester, I was absolutely exhausted and I did not have the energy. Reed and I have also traveled a lot this year, and so that really hindered a lot of things. So ideally, I would have gone through and pruned any suckers. I would have tried to keep the vines to only put off one main shoot. However, that just wasn't my reality. So the reason I'm going through and doing this now is because we are, at the time of recording, about 2 weeks away from our average last frost. As of right now, as I am recording this voiceover and editing this video for you, our average last frost date is actually in 2 days. We currently do not have a frost forecast, thankfully, because we still have a lot of green tomatoes. So I'm going through and I'm trying to get the plants to stop putting energy into growing bigger. And I'm taking off all the red tomatoes, and this is going to promote the tomato plant actually ripening the green tomatoes that are on the vine. That way we can make sure we are maximizing our harvest. We are also thinning this out so that way there's no more chance of the plants catching any more disease before these green tomatoes ripen for us to harvest. All right, so that looks better. We trimmed off a bunch of leaves to let these green tomatoes have room to ripen, to help limit disease. Like these poor jalapeno plants you didn't even know existed underneath the tomatoes, because honestly, the garden got a little neglected just this year, but there are tons and tons and tons of green tomatoes on here. I would really like them to ripen. We did have quite a few fall off in the process, but that's okay. We'll be fine. Next, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna harvest the beans, see if there's beans in there, harvest the basil, harvest more basil, and then we're going to tackle that. So I think the rest of this is going to be a garden tour, and then what I just did with the tomatoes here is exactly what I'm going to do with all of the rest of the tomatoes in our yard. Like these ones, like this took me almost an hour to prune out, thin out, and clean up. That's going to take me quite some time. I don't know if you can see, like it is an absolute jungle over there. So that's going to take me some time. So let's just continue on with the garden tour. There's a spider in here. So grody. So these look like they caught some sort of disease, so we'll just compost these ones. I don't know. Yeah, can you see that? They just look diseased. So into the compost they go. Being pregnant as the garden season was starting and really ramping up, kind of kicked my butt this year, if I'm completely honest. And at this point, I'm very much ready for the garden to kind of be done and to start tapering off. So I have no problems going ahead and pulling these flowers that have died. Some of these flowers, they were still alive, but because of how late in the season it is, I want to pull them now, so it'll be less work for me to put the garden to bed here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm just going ahead and starting to take things down. I did go ahead and pull a whole bunch of tomato plants in the backyard. That video is coming next, so stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, because we are just done with the rotting diseased tomatoes, so stay tuned for that. But I'm reaching a point where I am ready to start nesting and getting things done inside the house, getting meal prep done, and I can't manage the garden and work full time doing all of that either. So it's time for the garden to be put to bed, and this felt really good for me to start winding it all down. All right, friends, this is what the other side of these tomatoes look like. You'd have never known it prior to the pruning, but like, look at all these rotten tomatoes that we have here. Those are just going to get composted. Hopefully these guys produce a little something, something, and I'll top all of this off. Same here. I got to clean up some of this, but hopefully the rest of these tomatoes will ripen on up. Here's our dinosaur kale. I think we can officially harvest all of our radish bean pods, and so I can pull these out of the garden. I can pull that straw flower. It's looking a little sad. I'll probably pull this straw flower. It's going to seed. And then there's definitely beans in here, so we'll get some beans harvested. We do have some peppers right here, so we will do some pepper harvesting. I think the peppers are also about done. Peppers don't like cooler temperatures, and we have had quite a few 50-degree days, or evenings, I should say, and I think the peppers are about done for. They're starting to look a little sad, so we'll harvest what we can. We'll see how they recover, and then, yeah, like, look at that guy. He's just so sad. So we'll harvest what we can. Apparently, we have we have a couple cucumbers here. Holy buckets. Do you see that? Look at that bean. I don't even know what this is. Holy smoke. Oh, we got more beans. These are definitely going to seed. We cannot eat those. So we do have some beans. That's super exciting. So let's... Oh, that's great. Wow. I can, like... Compared to this cucumber, look how fat this cucumber is in my hand compared to that bean. Holy smokes, here's another one. Wowza. That's awesome, but these flowers, look at how beautiful these flowers are. Oh, there's another cucumber. Yeah, see, and these cucumbers look really sad. So we're probably, I think I'm just going to chop the cucumber plant. The cucumber plant looks pretty pitiful. We have more beans. We got bean plants in here. I don't know if there's any beans growing. We're going to pull flowers. A lot of these flowers are looking pretty sad. That zinnia is doing okay. These zinnias are looking a little rough. That marigold's looking sad. And then there's tons of tomatoes in here. We just need to get in here and try and find them, really, is what it's about to come down to. So we will figure that out. That Cosmo's looking okay. So here are our potatoes. I am actually going to turn the irrigation off to our potatoes here and let them dry out. We just had a really, really wet, like 24, 36 hours about a week ago. And so I'm going to let them dry out. They're looking okay. They are starting to die anyways. And then this pumpkin plant, I am just going to pull. It has not put on a fruit yet. And at this point, even if it sets a fruit, it will not produce an actual, like, successful pumpkin plant. So we're just going to pull this pumpkin plant. This zucchini plant did actually produce a zucchini for us. It produced one. However, I definitely don't see another one. So we're probably also going to just pull this zucchini plant as well. So this year for us, the squash were pitiful. Like here's the pumpkin plant. There is a baby pumpkin. This will not mature before it gets cold. So the squash this year were sad. at how beautiful and orange these sugarish peach peppers are. That's what they need to be compared to like this. Do you see the stark color contrast? They're easy to distinguish. I'll just let these continue to ripen. Well, friends, the front yard's better. This is looking better. I can actually see the tomatoes. I can see my jalapeno plants, and I can see my basil. It is looking much better. We did harvest some basil here. We harvested some beans. This is our haul, and this is just the front yard. So we have yet to make it even to the backyard, but I'm starting to get a little toasty, and I need to go inside. I think Reed and I have some things that we want to go get accomplished. This is just a jungle, an absolute nightmare. So I tried to grab all the red tomatoes I could see and I could find. I grabbed a bunch of sugarish peach peppers that looked ripe, and I tried to pick off all of the rotting tomatoes that were on the vine. So that should help the plant, help promote the plant to put on a lot of, to help the plant set the fruit for all of the green tomatoes that we've got going on here. So hopefully we can get the most out of our harvest here. There's still a lot more like pruning and cleaning up I can do. I did go ahead and chop the base of these cucumber plants. They are looking a little rough. These beans, I think they are shelling beans. I think they're drying beans. So I'm just gonna let these pods continue to go, and we'll see what they are. But the cucumber plants, we're just gonna let them die because the beans are interwoven in with the cucumber plants. And then there's not really much left to pick off of my pepper plants here. I say that, and now I see a couple more. Every time I come and look at this, I see more and more peppers. But the beans over here, I harvested what I could. They were huge. I actually didn't expect them to get that big, but they were pretty big. And then here is this side of this trellis right here of the tomatoes. It's looking better. I'm happy we can actually see through it. So that's great. So if you look, some of these tomato plants were in fact starting to get some disease on them. And this is the reason I do not compost my tomato plant leaves or my tomato vines, because I don't want this to go into our soil. So this is our tomato harvest. This whole basket is full. This is really heavy. I would say this is a minimum of 20 pounds of tomatoes, which is super exciting. We've got peppers and some green beans in this basket that will also not go to waste. And then we've got a bunch of basil. I'm hoping we get at least one more harvest before the season ends. That would be fantastic. So we shall see, but I need to get this out of the sun. I need to get the basil processed and put into the fridge or the freezer so I can freeze dry it later. And then Reed and I are going to go get some things accomplished today. Tomorrow or sometime later this week, we will get into the backyard, or maybe this evening depending on how I'm feeling. We will get into the backyard and we will harvest the rest of the tomatoes that are back there that are red and ready to go, because there are a lot back there as well. But it is now 10:47. The sun is beating down. It is hot. I have not had enough water, which is not great. So we will be harvesting in the backyard, but I do feel like we accomplished a lot today. So, whew. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you found this entertaining, or at least somewhat educational. But I will see you all next time we are in the garden. You have a great day.